Hey guys, it's Coach Gooders here with another 6th grade Heritage Studies Ancient Civ Cultural Geography video. This is going to be Unit 4. This Unit 4 is actually going to be the first of a 4-part video series. We're going to break up each of these 2 chapters into 2 different videos. So Persia is going to get parts 1 and 2. Greece is going to get a part 1 and 2 as well. So this is going to be Unit 4, Part 1 of Ancient Persia. So make sure you got your notes ready, and here we go. So you go ahead, pause the video, and write these down for the essential questions. We'll be answering these as we work our way through the unit. What are the similarities and differences between Zoroastrianism and Christianity? And then how has the Greek culture affected us today? So go ahead and pause it, and then when you're ready, unpause, and we'll keep going. Our first one is Persia, located in modern-day Iran. In its heyday, the empire stretched from Macedonia, which was right above Greece, to Egypt, to India, to Turkey. So a very widespread and diverse empire in its heyday, and this is kind of what it looked like. So stretching way out into Asia, taking over parts of Africa, with Egypt stretching up, touching part of the Balkan countries right here, and then the Middle East, obviously, as well. Very prominently featured throughout the Bible as well. Today, this is what that area looks like, focusing mainly on Iran in the middle. Example of some of the architecture and artwork, some of which still survives. Here we go, in the beginning. Cyrus II, 559 to 530 BC, also known as Cyrus the Great, would defeat the rival Medes and begin to advance into Asia Minor, which was back then called Lydia, which is now modern-day Turkey. He was relatively seen as the wise, benevolent ruler. He would allow conquered lands to keep their own languages, religions, and customs, like he did with Israel, which we talked about in Unit 2. He was credited as being used by God to free the Israelites from Chaldean control, and he founded the Achaemenid dynasty, which is going to be the first dynasty. Achaemenid means the first, and he established a capital city at Persia A. Cyrus the First is going to be the first of the great kings that we'll talk about with this dynasty. And there he is, Cyrus II, Cyrus the Great. This is Cyrus the Great's tomb, located outdoors. What didn't used to be outdoors used to be a great temple complex surrounding it. Here you can see some of the leftover columns, and this is what it looks like from a nearby hill. This all used to be part of Persia A, the capital city. After Cyrus the Great, Cambyses, Cyrus' son, would took over after his father's death. After his accidental death, where he's recorded by having stabbed himself in some way, shape, or form, a noble named Darius put down a rebellion, maybe helped to organize part of that rebellion so that he could be next in line, and then took control, and he became known as Darius I, or Darius the Great. Under his rule, Persia would reach the height of its size and power and become known as an ancient world superpower. And he would have 2 different capitals during his reign, moving it from Persia to Susa, the first, while his second and main capital of Persepolis was being constructed. So it's 3 kings down. This is where the Persian Empire begins to look like this. Centralized government. Darius would establish a bureaucracy in his government. Remember, bureaucracy just means having different government agencies in charge of different things, reporting back to the king or the leader of the government. He would split up his empire into 20 provinces, which were called satrapies, and they were each under the authority of the local governor or satrap, who is loyal only to the king. Some of the different satraps here, it's kind of hard to read, but they're also really difficult to pronounce too. And these satraps would bring taxes and gifts and tributes to the king at certain points during the year, like you see them here. The road system. In order to control such a large empire through trade and communication, Darius would build a large network of roads. In total, 8,000 miles, with the main one being the Royal Road, which stretched from Susa to Sardis, about 1,600 miles, and also set up a messenger dispatch system with horses and different outposts to help communicate quickly from one side to the other. And you see some of the paths and roads here connected. With these good roads, many people from many places came to trade many different items. Once a year, ambassadors from surrounding countries came to pay tribute to Darius, and Darius helped to standardize the money system with darics, named after himself, which would be the gold coins, and shekels, which are going to be silver coins, like this. This is actually a Hebrew shekel, which probably came from around that time period as well. Persia's most famous and best trained soldiers were known as the Immortals. They were known as the Immortals because when one died, one immediately took his place. According to legend, there were always 10,000 of them, never any less, never any more. Darius gained fame as an immortal, serving under Cambyses, Cyrus' son. They also began to experiment using different cavalry horseback soldiers that would attack before foot soldiers to help weaken the enemy before retreating. And Darius used his army to make Persia as large as possible. Some of the stills from the pretty famous movie called 300, which depicts a series of battles between the Greeks and the Persians. This is what, according to that movie, Hollywoodized, obviously, the Immortals look like. This is probably a better representation of what they look like. Languages and arts in Persia. The common folk spoke many languages, including Aramaic. The monarchy of Persia spoke Old Persian and wrote in cuneiform, just like their Sumerian ancestors. Persepolis was beautifully constructed with columns, gold ornate entrances, and all sorts of decorations. And archaeologists have discovered beautiful artifacts with gold bracelets, earrings, headdresses, and rhytons. The old drinking cup vessels, ornately decorated, usually of solid gold. This is the cuneiform alphabet with the different sounds. And a couple examples of rhytons. Not very practical for putting down anywhere, but if you're just holding on to it, they do look really cool. Don't know why. They had something with goats, obviously. Some sort of importance. Alright, one of the more interesting religions we get to talk about, because it's just one that not many people have heard of, is Zoroastrianism. Around the 500s BC, Zoroaster founded the main religion of ancient Persia, which helped to try and explain the existence of good and evil. It is different from a lot of other ancient religions because it is monotheistic, which means there is one God. And that God was called Ahura Mazda, and he is the creator and the bearer of light. Ahura Mazda battles an evil, equally powerful being known as Ahriman, who is kind of based on a representation of Satan. Man can gain eternal happiness by doing more good than bad, and their main religious text is called the Avesta. And Zoroaster, this is like the symbol of Zoroastrianism, which is found on these ancient temples. And there you see Ahriman, their idea of the devil. Kind of gets, we in Christianity via Judaism kind of borrowed ideas regarding what he looks like with the horns and the tail and all that stuff from Ahriman. Alright, last one for today, the Magi. The Ahura Mazda was represented by fire, and the priests kept fires continually burning in their temples. These priests would be called Magi. You guys have all heard tales of the three Magi, the three wise men. It is very likely that they were Persian priests. This is where we get the word magic from. While Zoroastrianism was the main religion, Darius, in his time as king, respected other religions as well and allowed them to practice, such as Judaism. And I think, guys, this is where we're going to leave off for the day. There is no mini quiz because we have not gotten that far. Oh, here are some modern day, more modern Zoroastrian priests. It is still practiced, even though it does not have a very large following. We'll be watching some videos with that as we're going on. And then you have the three wise men, the three Magi, bringing gifts to baby Jesus. I think that is a good place to stop for the day. There is no mini quiz because we have not reached the halfway point. The next video will conclude with a mini quiz. So I look forward to discussing this all with you guys very soon.